thank you for joining us this afternoon for the next in a series of GINSA webinars following the developments in Israel ever since the gruesome attacks on October 7th. I'm Blaise Mishtal, GINSA's Vice President for Policy, and together with my colleagues here at GINSA, we've obviously been following closely, analyzing what's been going on, coming up with recommendations for the US on how to assist Israel at this critical moment. We have daily updates on what is happening in the war. We have analyses of coming this week on what is at stake in Gaza, some of the strategic considerations Israel faces in the north in dealing with Hezbollah, as well as other policy recommendations for Congress and the administration. You can find all of those on our website at ginsa.org, and I encourage you to subscribe for our emails. We also have a number of other webinars coming up this week, including tomorrow with General Breedlove, former commander of European Command, and Ambassador Eric Edelman, talking about the global implications of this war. And on Wednesday, with General Votel, commander of Central Command, and Admiral Mark Fox, commander of the Fifth Fleet, talking about the U.S. response and what military assistance the U.S. can offer Israel at this moment. But today we are joined by GINSA's outstanding Israel team to give us an update on what is going on the ground in Israel, how the war is developing, and where it's likely to go next. I'm honored to be joined by GINSA Senior Vice President, IDF Major General Yaakov Aish, formerly the head of operations for the General Staff and the Defense Attaché at the Embassy here in Washington, as well as Major General Amikon Norkin, a GINSA Distinguished Fellow and former commander. And we are now lucky to also be joined by GINSA's Distinguished Fellow, Major General Yaakov Amidror, former National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister of Israel. Thank you all for joining us. I wanted to start by getting an update on what happened over the last 72 hours over the weekend, on where things stand now. And then we're going to dive a little more deeply into looking at some of the challenges and considerations that Israel faces in preparing for the Gaza operation. And we have some slides in a presentation from General Norkin on that. But let me start maybe with you, General Aish. We have seen over the last couple of days, there's been some increased attacks coming from Lebanon, increased IDF activity, targeting, hitting targets inside of Lebanon. Now there's been a 2-kilometer security zone set up, as I understand it. Can you tell us a little more about what's going on in the north?
Okay, I'll try and do it briefly, cover the situation in the different sectors. I'll move from north to south, although I prefer that General Amidror will start. I know that he have a personal issue. So Amidror, would you like to start and kick off, and maybe then I can elaborate? Go ahead, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll begin with the north. I think it's very important to understand the situation. The most important question for the next change is, where stands Mr. Nasrallah, the secretary of Hezbollah? Will he join the game or not? Because for us, it's a huge difference. For what we see, he tried to play within the lines. In one side, he has a lot of pressure from people around him and other organizations telling him, Mr. Nasrallah, you're supposed to act when the Israelis are destroying Hamas, our little brother. And on the other side, he see what is going on in Gaza, and the last thing that he wants is that will be the same situation in Beirut or other Shiite centers. So he tried to play within the two lines. In one side, yes, I'm taking part in the game, and at least the two first groups which infiltrated to Israel were Palestinians, not Shiites from Lebanon, Palestinians. With the envelope of support was done by Nasrallah, but the team which was annihilated by us was in both cases Palestinians. And he retaliated directly by Hezbollah only after he lost some of his own people in the skirmishes after the infiltration of these teams into Israel. So I think that what Nasrallah tries is to go between the lines. My assessment is that he doesn't want to be in a war. He remembers what might be the end of it, and he see what's going on in Gaza, and this is for him, it's a nightmare. But I think that when I'm saying it, the IDF should not take into consideration my assessment. On the contrary, the IDF should be well prepared to a stage in which we will have to fight both fronts. It is not going to be easy. Some people said it is an historic opportunity for us. I'm not sure about it. But if it will be decided by the other side, we don't have any other choice but to take the advantage of such a situation. My view is that we should concentrate on Gaza and finish the job in Gaza before we assess taking the advantage and going to Lebanon. But maybe it is not in our hands, and the decision will be taken by Hezbollah. Here, the American point is very important, because sending 2 carriers and saying what the president said, it's a very strong hint to both Hezbollah and Iran. And if that will be clear, and here the American way of selling it to the world is very important, the more clear the Americans will be, the more chances to deter both Hezbollah and Iran. And here is something that we should go and have a dialogue with the Americans, because the way that it will be presented by the Americans is a very important one. I really apologize. I have a family for one of the missing soldiers in the operation, and they just came in, and I am going to speak with them. So I apologize that I will not be to the end of this very important briefing. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, General Amador, for joining us. I really appreciate your comments. General Aish, maybe sticking with Lebanon, I wanted to ask just to clarify something that General Amador was talking about, where we've seen that the attacks and the infiltration that has been coming into Israel in recent days has been by Palestinian groups from inside of Lebanon. I guess first, do we have a sense of how many Hamas or PIJ fighters there are inside Lebanon? But secondly, I know that before October 7th, when PIJ or other Palestinian groups did attack Israel or did escalate from Lebanon, Israel had taken care not to retaliate against Hezbollah directly. Has that now changed? Have the strikes that we've seen inside of Lebanon, have those been just against the Palestinian groups, or is Israel hitting Hezbollah targets as well?
Les, with your permission, just to help the others who are not following everything on a daily basis, let me try and bring things to context vis-a-vis the Lebanese sector, the northern arena, and the other sectors. And I would start by saying that from our last webinar, what was changed significantly in the north is the fact that almost on a daily basis, we are having constant attacks, small attacks, skirmishes. However, it started with the Palestinians that got the permission of Hezbollah to act via the Lebanese border. And it continued with the Hezbollah small units that are very active in the last 2 days in terms of attacks. I mean, anti-tank missiles, surface to air missiles that were launched, snipers, and many other incidents. Obviously, Israel have retaliated in a very accurate and aggressive manner, but it didn't brought to the arena to a broader escalation. The reason why it's so important is due to the fact that in the southern arena, in Gaza, it's quite clear that the IDF, mainly via the Air Force, is achieving a significant achievement in terms of destroying Hamas capabilities and in terms of preparing the ground forces for a ground offensive should it come, or when the IDF will be instructed to execute it. And the most important point here is the fact that we are in a tipping point between the two sectors. You know, our attention is to the different arenas, and obviously they affect each other. And I assume that Hezbollah is trying to show solidarity with the Hamas on one hand, but no one can assure us, and this is very important, no one can assure us that it's only that. And the fact that they don't want an escalation, no one can promise us that this is the situation. And when you are talking about the risk that comes with it, it is something that is highly calculated within the IDF estimate at the moment. And that's why I emphasized the importance of what is going on at the northern arena. This is about that sector. Regarding the southern sector, since October 7th, since the onslaught of Hamas, we are revealing, you know, on a daily basis the results, the atrocities that they have conducted. And at the same time, after we have cleared the internal side of the border, the Israeli side, we are attacking heavily inside the Gaza Strip, and I'll leave it to General Norkin. He'll be able to describe it better than me. Last point, we have to remember, during that time, we are doing raids and arrests on every evening in Judea and Samaria. We are talking about more than 40 terrorists that were killed in the last week in Judea and Samaria. More than 300 Hamas militants, leaders were arrested. So by saying that, what I wanted to describe is the fact that the IDF, with the other defense forces and defense agencies, is busy in all sectors via all its branches. I'll stop here. Maybe later we can talk about the other issues, and I'll hand it over back to you.
Thank you, General Eish, for that rundown of what's been going on the different fronts. General Norkin, can I hand it over to you to give us a little more detail about what Israel faces in Gaza and the considerations for its operations there?
Yes, thank you very much, Mary. First of all, I share a slide of the Israeli map, just to remember the size and to be on the same database, the size of Israel and of course the size of Gaza Strip. And the Air Force, from the first moment, defend the Israeli population from Tel Aviv to the south. And in the first day, the Hamas launched 3,000 missiles and rockets. It's something that never happened in Israel, that our enemies launched through Israel such an amount of rockets. And I'm happy to update that the Iron Dome and the David Sling, they are doing both very good job, and we are defending our nation. And although they launched 3,000 rockets in the first day, we lost only one woman. And of course, the special forces from the IDF and of course from the Air Force, with our helicopters, start to support the ground forces near the border. And now, after the two first day, we take control back, and we are controlling the border around Gaza. In this mission, we killed 1,500 terrorists by pushing them back from Israel back to Gaza. And all those activities are happened in a very small area around the Gaza Strip, which is between 5 to 8 kilometers wide and 35 to 40 kilometers from the south to the north. Many combat airplanes, UAV, helicopters flying over Gaza 24/7, and at the same time we're intercepting rockets and missiles with the Iron Dome. So it's a very unique operation, and we know how to do it. You can see here the timeline in Gaza. I don't want to dip inside, just to remember that in the previous operation it was they were a very short operation, a week or two, and now we are talking about a war. It's a completely different story. So as I mentioned, air defense, this is the main issue, and then we push them back, and now we act, and all those villages and cities are clean from any terrorists. Unfortunately, till now we lost 1,300 people, and we understand that they kidnapped. The number is already a little bit even higher, almost 200 people into Gaza. The first week, the Air Force attacked thousands of targets. We dropped the first week 6,000 bombs. It's a little bit more than the amount of bombs that the American forces dropped in Afghanistan in 1 year. So we destroy a lot of Hamas infrastructures, on ground, underground, headquarters, launchers, missile launchers, and many of the Hamas commanders already have been attacked while we are defending the state of Israel with the Iron Dome. So the main mission for the Air Force is to attack all the Hamas infrastructures, and by that we are looking forward to the government strategic goal to destroy any military capability or government capability of Hamas in Gaza. Since the last 2 days, the IDF asked the Palestinian population to move from the north to the south. There is a very small river near the city of Gaza. We call it the Gaza River. It's a river with no water, but it's still a river. It's, you know, in Israel, the rivers, they have water only in the winter time. And we asked them to move from the north part of Gaza. Let's go back to the, move back to the slide of the map. And by that, you can understand better. You can see here the city of Gaza at the middle in Gaza Strip, And now we ask the Palestinian population to move to the south part of Gaza Strip. And this is part of the Israeli plan before the ground maneuver. And if we got less Palestinian citizens, the collateral damage will be lower. We don't want to attack any civilians, and we can fight with the Hamas terrorists with no collateral damage. And if we might destroy all the Hamas infrastructures north to Gaza River, it will be a huge achievement for the Israeli plan. And this, let's say, announcement for them, it's a strategic issue. Why? Because Egypt don't want to have any Palestinians inside Egypt, and the pressure on the Egyptian border in the south part of Gaza become harder and harder. And this is the reason that President Sisi called for, to have a negotiation in Cairo the next few days. And all the systems is, let's say, looks to Gaza now and try to understand if the population is start to moving to the south and what is going to be there. So this is what the Air Force is doing in the last few days, and of course many other activities. But this is the main.
Thank you, General Norkin. If I could ask you maybe some questions about what you just laid out, starting in particular with the notice, the warning that Israel gave to tell Gazans to move to the south of the Strip. We've heard reporting that Hamas is telling them not to leave, maybe even blocking them from leaving. Can you tell us a little more about that and any information you have about how many have been able to make it to the south and how many are still in the north?
Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but as you mentioned,
600,000.
The Hamas tried to avoid the population from moving from the north part to the south part. I think that he understands what is going to happen there. So there are a few obstacles, but once we ask them to do it and we start to attack near the neighborhoods and without attacking the road that they need to take from the north to the south, I think that no one will stay there, and all those Palestinians, this is my assessment, they are going to move to the south because they want to keep their life.
Thank you. So, General Ice, you were saying 600,000 are left, or 600,000 have left?
600,000 have left the city of Gaza, and they have moved, as General Norkin described, southern to the Gaza Wadi. So right now, this amount of people is out of danger in terms of the air assault, and I assume that they'll be out of risk when it comes to the ground assault. Having said that, it's only the first stage. I want to emphasize here something that the IDF, the Air Force, is doing during this war. They are using leaflets. They are still using some of the measures to avoid collateral damage. And what we can see here is the fact that we are pushing the population out of the city of Gaza, which is the heart of Hamas, their HQs, their depots, their special capabilities. Most of them are hidden under the ground in Gaza, under very sensitive spots in Gaza. They know exactly what they are trying to prevent from the population to leave Gaza. They know that once this human shield have moved to the south, they are fully exposed over there to two elements. One, first of all, is the airstrikes, and second is the ground offenses that I assume that would go to the heart of Gaza as well, this way or another. And that's why it's so sensitive. Just to give you a sense what type of capabilities they have there. You know, during October 7th, those who have penetrated the border of Israel and attacked the kibbutzim and the villages were something like 1,500 terrorists. And when we started to count, after we killed almost all of them, and we started to count what they have left behind them, we found something like 1,500 AK-47s, 1,000 IEDs, 80 surface-to-air missiles, 50 missiles that can penetrate walls, hundreds of advanced machine guns, 1,000 of RPG rockets, and so on and so forth. And this is only with 1,500 terrorists that penetrated the border. Bear in mind that inside Gaza, there are something between 30 to 35,000 more. And still, we are using whatever we can when it comes to our capacity to push the population, to distinct the population for the major war areas. Doesn't matter if we do it from the air or with some other tools. So this is the situation over there. I didn't answer your question about the fact that we decided to evacuate the population 2 kilometers up to 2 kilometers from our border in the north. This is part of the precautions that we are taking in order, first of all, to defend the population from an attack. It doesn't matter if it comes with mortars, rockets, or a direct attack. And on the other hand, it allows the IDF a greater degree of freedom to act in that area. So this is about the north and about the south. Blaise.
Thanks, General Eish. So let me delve deeper into some of what you said. You said about 600,000 Gazans have left the north. That's out of a population of about 1 million, a little over 1 million in the north. Is that about right?
Yes, 1.1, but you are talking here not only on Gaza City. 1.1, it's up to the border with us. It includes Bet Lahia, Jabalia, Bet Hanun, and the other neighborhoods north to Gaza City.
So potentially something around 500,000 still left in the north, civilians still left in the north. You talked about how Hamas's capabilities, their command and control, a lot of their infrastructures in the north. Does that mean there isn't Hamas infrastructure to the same degree in the south of Gaza?
Well,
They have. Go ahead, Noki.
The fact that we ask them to move to the south, it's not mean that we are not attacking in the south. We are attack the Hamas headquarters in the south and the Hamas shelters and all the others also in the south. But we try to keep the roads from the north to the south a little bit more clean. Now we are focusing on the south, and if we are going to enter to Gaza water or medical, any other humanitarian support, they are going to enter from the south gate.
Is there a risk with Israel trying to move the civilian population to the south that Hamas will just go with them, given the fact that Hamas hides behind civilians, uses them as human shields? I understand they might be exposing some of their infrastructure there then to Israeli attack, but could the leadership and the fighters just continue hiding among the civilians in the south?
Well, they are always hiding between the civilians. It doesn't matter if the south or the north. This is the way they act. All the headquarters are inside civilian houses. From time to time, you can see the media, 8th floor house, and at the 6th floor, we attack a specific room because our intelligence designate the Hamas commander inside the 6th floor in his bedroom or whatever. So we understand that this is part of the game. They are inside the civilian population. If we need to evacuate the whole neighborhood, we are doing it. If we understand that the Hamas commander are inside in some of those rooms, we are attacking those infrastructures with no alert.
I guess on that topic, let me ask you, General Norkin and General Aish. One of the things that stood out to me from Operation Guardians of the Wall, the 2021 operation in Gaza, was the quantity and quality of Israeli intelligence to be able to identify and hit targets inside Gaza, including what the IDF called the Metro, the underground network that Hamas had built. And the use in that conflict by the IDF of artificial intelligence to help find some of those targets. Are you able to tell us anything about how Israeli intelligence is faring in finding targets in this conflict? Are those target banks that were developed still accurate? Has Hamas, in preparation for this conflict, dug new tunnels or hidden new places? How is the IDF finding the Hamas terrorists and distinguishing them from the civilians in this difficult environment?
Well, as you know, usually in such a war or campaign, we got a previous intelligence, and by that we prepare the targets from all kinds. But once the war is started, there is more and more intelligence because of the Hamas activities all around the day. And once the ground maneuver will enter to Gaza, a lot of data will pop up to the air, and we are going to collect those signs with our very advanced technology. And by that, we can understand where is the enemy. So it's a real-time intelligence. Unfortunately, in 2021, we destroyed a lot of the underground facilities, but we didn't kill enough terrorists. And now they understood that we can penetrate from the air to the underground facilities. So they are not staying in the underground headquarters or tunnels 24/7. I think that they are going to do it once the ground maneuver will start, and then we are going to attack more and more underground assets.
Thanks, General Norkin. Let me also ask, because General Aish mentioned that there were shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles found with the terrorists that attacked on October 7th. Has that been a concern or a problem with the IAF flying missions over Gaza? Has it encountered anti-aircraft fire or shoulder-fired missiles?
The threat over Gaza is mainly for the helicopter, for the Apache and other helicopters that act around Gaza. In the North Front, it's completely different story. In the North Front, Hezbollah got a very advanced anti-air capabilities, and it's a very high threat in Lebanon.
Staying with Gaza just a little longer, talking about the humanitarian situation and the civilians. We have heard that Israel is going to turn on water and enable some humanitarian assistance into the south. Can you give us any information about that?
Okay, so I'll answer that. Obviously, we are putting a lot of pressure on Hamas, and we conditioned the release of some of this pressure by getting our people, our abducted people back. And for that, we disconnected them from electricity. and they are using now generators. We shut down the entrances into the Gaza Strip, and we are not allowing any fuel or goods inside. And some of the sweet water that is coming from Israel was disconnected. Don't get me wrong, there are some sources for those issues inside Gaza. People tend to forget it. They have some independence when it comes to sweet water. They have their own wells, and they have some electricity, not to mention some electricity that they can get from Egypt. However, in order to mount that pressure, that's exactly what we did. And it is part of the attempt, to get our people back together with the other operational and intelligence effort. Having said that, as Norkin mentioned, we decided to open access for sweet water from Israel to those who have crossed the Gaza Wadi to the southern part of Gaza, i.e. have moved from Gaza City to the south. First of all, to allow them some humanitarian assistance, and second, to encourage them to do so. The third part that, as far as I have heard, is going on is some negotiation between us and the US to allow kind of a humanitarian corridor, which was mentioned in a way by Norkin. We are limiting our strikes at the south to allow certain corridors, certain access to those who are living in Gaza to the south. That's the idea behind it. And don't get me wrong, we are going to continue to mount pressure on Hamas. And if they want to change it, they have only one way.
Is there any update that you can give us on the status of attempts to bring back the hostages? I think the number is now up to close to 200.
No, I can't speak about that. It's too sensitive. Obviously, it's not the time nor the place to speak about it by us. What I can tell is what was published. We are doing whatever we can in almost every channel, the international channel, operational channel, intelligence channel, in order to promote that issue. And I assume that you are following the fact that the Prime Minister have met the families, some of the families, yesterday. Highly sensitive matter. I'm not sure that any country in the past have faced something like that, but it is part of the complexity that we are facing over here.
General Norkin, unless there's anything else you want to add, I was going to turn back to the north. Anything else on Gaza you wanted to add?
Well, I think that we might understand that when I see that some of our audience asked about the Iranian involvement, so I will move to the slide that I would like to present. This is a very important issue, especially looking at the American perspective, because it's a campaign now between Russia, Iran, China, Hezbollah, and of course Hamas against the Western world. And, once we are talking with our friends from Europe, they understood that we are in the front against those terrorists, like we were in with ISIS. And once the Iranian foreign minister threat Israel and visited in Lebanon yesterday and support Hezbollah, our answer is the Israeli defense forces, with, of course, the strategic support and the very important support that we got from the American president and the fact that the second carrier is going to be here, and all the logistic support. And I can also add that it's, from my point of view, it's a very important step for the American, let's say, government. Once the American interest is to be a major actor in the Middle East. So now it's not just the military campaign, it's also the strategic campaign, and the reason that the Secretary of State came to Israel and then he flew to Saudi Arabia and back to Israel. I think that it's a sign that we need to act not just at the military level, we need to try to build a very strong front against the Iranian Hezbollah, and maybe with the China support behind here in this war.
So let me ask in a little more detail about what we can be doing to build that coalition and put that pressure on the Iranian front. General Aish, you mentioned in your earlier remarks that it's important for the United States to send a very clear deterrent signal to Hezbollah. But we've seen President Biden, when he was asked, what he wants to say to Iran and Hezbollah, he said very simply, don't escalate. He sent 2 carrier groups to the Eastern Mediterranean, although, as you said in an earlier webinar, those might be there primarily to enable the evacuation of U.S. citizens and as well as enabling resupply of Israel. So what is your analysis of sort of the strength of the U.S. deterrent against Hezbollah and Iran right now? And is there more that can or should be done by the U.S. to make sure we are sending that clear signal of don't get involved?
Okay, a word before, just to show the context and the impact of Iran for those who are not aware. Iran that guided, trained, equipped, funded Hamas, or should I call them Hamaisis, because Hamas is ISIS. Look what they have done and look what they have achieved, not only over here. Take a look at what have happened to the normalization talks with the Saudis. So the strategic impact by Iran as they are using one of their proxies is pretty impressive. And before we are talking about deterrence or things that can be done or should be done, we should understand the impact of Iran in this case and others. I didn't mention the impact that they can create by activating Hezbollah that we talked at the beginning of the webinar. And we didn't mention the Shia militia in Iraq or the Houthis in Yemen, which are also equipped by them. And the issue to address it should be based on a very clear military deterrence, which I think we have seen in the last few days by the US, first of all, by the president, clear messages, and the rest of the administration. A lot have been said about the presence of the US carriers. They have their own impact when it comes to very clear, I would say, diplomacy. It's pretty impressive, but people tend to confuse that with the war that Israel is involved with. I think it's highly relevant. It can be a source of deterrence. It could be a source of supply, but it's, to my understanding, irrelevant to our direct war with Hamas or Hamaisis, or in the future, should things would escalate with other players in the arena.
Is there a role or a possibility of some of the U.S. assets in the region, for example, Aegis cruisers providing battlefield awareness, intelligence, even anti-missile capabilities to assist?
I would answer it in general terms. I don't want to be too specific. Obviously, the U.S. presence, the U.S. impact on the region in many ways, and the Israeli borders with its neighbors is very vast, very important, you know. And now you can choose. It could be intelligence and many other capabilities that might be relevant. I already mentioned the fact that they are here can shorten the time and access to some logistic supply as well, but I don't want to be too specific when I'm answering that.
General Norkin, any insights from you as to what more the U.S. can be doing to help confront this Iranian axis?
Well, I think that it's a very wide and very strong step what the Americans did already. As always, we mentioned the tankers. I think that if the American Air Force might send 3 to 4 tankers.
These are the KC-46 aerial refueling tankers that Israel has ordered already.
Air fuel tankers, and they will deploy to Israel, it will be even a stronger message.
Thank you for that recommendation. I guess let me end by asking you both about what Israel's strategy is. There's been, I think, a lot of discussion of this here in Washington, in particular, sort of what the objective in Gaza is. I think on the one hand, the Security Cabinet has said destroy the military and governing capabilities of Hamas. On the other hand, we often hear the political leaders say things like destroy Hamas, which is a much more maximalist objective and leads to questions about whether Israel is planning to occupy Gaza, or if not, who takes Gaza over. So any thoughts, General Norkin?
Well, who is going to take Gaza? This is not a question that we can speak about or answer that we should answer now. And it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that we should have no military threat from Gaza anymore. If we want those more than 50,000 citizens, Israeli citizens, to move back to our houses, the kibbutz and the villages, in Sderot, Netivot, and all the other areas, the west side of the Negev, Israeli Negev, cannot ask them to do it if there is a threat in Gaza. So people might still believe in their beliefs that Hamas it's good. Okay, they can believe, but they cannot have any military capabilities, and it's going to be a very long war, and I think that it might achieve by few stages, by few steps. The first one will be a military step, very strong one, and later on, Israel is going to need to keep another actions in the military and non-military diplomatic activities to avoid any threats from Gaza, and then we can recover our civilians' infrastructures and the Israeli economy here in the south part of Israel. So without opening another front in the north. And of course, with our friends, the Americans and other, and if the normalization procedure that already started with Saudi Arabia will be part of the achievements, will be very positive goal for Israel. So it's a very wide. It's although it's a very small territory, Gaza Strip, the impact of what happened in October 7, it's a strategic impact It's something that never happened in Israel since 1948. And if we want to be here, and if we want that the Israeli children and grandchildren will be here in Israel, they need to feel safe and with no such a threat anymore.
General Aish, anything to add on Israeli
I would-
objectives and Gaza or overall in this war?
And I think after what we have seen, we should be very careful from what we wish and the gap with what is happening. You know, it's quite clear that we are very much focused on Gaza, and we have to monitor the north very carefully because I'm not sure that it's up to us to decide. You're asking about intelligence. After October 7th, we should be very humble and very careful in our assumptions. And I would leave it like that. Right now, the mission, as it was declared by the Israeli government, was translated into a military plan to Gaza, and we have no limited time to execute it. And due to the reasons that General Norkin described, we have to execute it first and foremost, because this is our obligation to the settlers outside of Gaza.
Well, gentlemen, I think we'll leave it there for today. I don't think anyone could say it better than General Norkin did. If we want Israeli children to live in peace in the future, this is what Israel has to do to secure itself. Thank you for your time and for your insights. We hope that you and your families remain safe. To those watching, thank you for tuning in. Please go to jinsa.org to read our latest analyses and updates on the war in Israel. And stay tuned for further webinars this week discussing the global implications of this crisis, as well as what assistance the U.S. military is providing Israel. Thank you, everyone. Good night, generals. Good afternoon to all of you here in the States.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amikam.
Bye-bye.